A 5-win team making the playoffs is just about the most 2020 thing I can imagine for the NFL. The NFC East never ceases to amaze. After 12 weeks of football, 2 teams sit atop the division with 4 wins apiece, while the other 2 are hot on their heels with 3 wins and 3 wins in a tie. If these teams were not in the NFC East, they'd be competing for a top 5 pick. Now, they're competing for a home playoff game. To give you some idea about how bad this division is, in their 26 games outside their division this year, they have beaten 4 teams. Those 4 teams are the Atlanta Falcons, who blew a 78-point lead to Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, the Cincinnati Bengals, who the Washington football team took out the legs of Joe Burrow, the 49ers when they were missing 11 starters, and the Minnesota Vikings on what some would call questionable officiating. They are 5-20-1 against teams outside their division. And the Buccaneers or Rams are going to have to go play one of these guys on the road in the playoffs. Every single starting quarterback in this division has more turnovers than they do touchdowns. None of these teams belong anywhere near the postseason. But someone has to win the division. That someone is a football team called the Washington football team. Washington may be terrible and a disgrace to the league due to their quarterback situation and lackluster secondary. Their front seven's actually pretty solid. They've got strong young players, they've got established veterans, and they can really pass rush and stop the run game. The only other group of players in this division which I think is of note is the Cowboys wide receivers. But that strength is mitigated when you've got Andy Dalton throwing you the ball. The front seven paired with the fact they get to play the Panthers, who love losing close games, and Carson Wentz's Eagles again this year, puts the Washington football team in the driver's seat of the NFC Least.
Well, as usual, Isaiah, you're wrong. Washington may have the best position group out of any team in the NFC East. Yes, their front seven is amazing. Yes, their pass rush is special. But when you look at the rest of their team, their offense is incredibly flawed. They cannot win a game unless they are playing a terrible defense. If their team that they are playing has a good defense, or if the defense is at least competent, they are going to lose. They have played the Giants twice this year, who are the worst team that they've lost to, and they lost both times. The Giants have a good defense, in my opinion. Isaiah, you'd probably say it's only a competent defense because, you're a
it's
Giants
average,
hater.
but you look at the offenses they've played and you could see why the stats would say they're a decent defense. My response to that, Tristan, though, they play two terrible defenses in the back part of the year, but continue.
And so what I'm getting at there is that they can't beat teams that have any semblance of a defense that is competent. They beat the Cowboys twice, one of the worst defenses in NFL history. That's 2 of their last wins. And they tore Joe Burrow's leg off. They probably don't win that game, or that game is very close, probably comes down to the last drive if Joe Burrow's on the field.
As someone who's going to praise the Giants, you really shouldn't talk about Joe Burrow's injury. That's a detriment to the football team.
I'm not here to praise any team, because as you said, this is the worst division in NFL history, and none of these teams are good. So I'm not going to be praising anyone. I'm just saying who I think is going to be winning this division. NC State product, Ryan Finley, wasn't going to be winning that game behind that offensive line. He also wasn't starting last week against the Giants. That's how bad he is. I think the Washington football team has 1 win left on their schedule, and that is the Eagles. The Eagles are, I think, by far the worst team in the NFC East. We may mention them a little bit later in this video. You can pander on all you want about their defensive line. They are not going to be able to beat the Steelers defense. The Steelers have one of the best defenses in the NFL. 49ers, despite their injuries, have put together a very competent defense, and they've put together a good season. They just beat the Rams, who was Isaiah's best team in the NFL last week. The Seahawks are going to put up about 1,000 points on them, and the Panthers their defense isn't great, but it is competent, and when the Washington football team plays a defense that at least knows what they're doing, they lose the game.
Tristan, the Panthers defense is not competent. They get scorched. The ground is ash after teams play them.
When really good teams play them,
really good teams like the Vikings and the Raiders and the Buccaneers who you've been dumping on the past 2 weeks.
And the Panthers almost beat the Chiefs, which you were holding against the Chiefs.
Panthers also lost to the Vikings, who are a dumpster fire of an organization in their own right, but
I mean, as you say, I guess at the end of the day, it is any day, but I don't think they're going to win that game. I think they have a competent defense. I think Washington's had their wins against the Cowboys and the Burrowless Bengals. I think people are over-exaggerating how good they are based off the dominance their D-line showed against the Cowboys. I don't think they're going to be taking the division, largely because of their remaining schedule.
I thoroughly disagree with that. I think they've got a guaranteed 1 win against the Eagles and a very possible win against the Panthers. But then you look at their schedule schedule. They play 3 really good teams back-to-back weeks. I would not be shocked, whether it be due to weather conditions lining up or the Steelers, who are going to have to play on Wednesday possibly, then immediately go play on a Monday. I would not be surprised if the football team could sneak one of those wins away from one of those good teams. It'd be devastating to that team, but it'd be amazing for the football team. Their D-line is good enough to make that happen. And it is, unless you're a New York Jets fan, any given week in the NFL.
Now for the 2 teams that I think are going to most likely win the division. I'm going to address the Cowboys. As bad as the Cowboys are, and I think they have the worst defense in the NFL, possibly the worst coaching staff in the NFL as well, Mike McCarthy is a bum. He's been a bust. He clearly wasn't studying film as much as he should have been in the offseason.
At least Mike McCarthy's not fighting his offensive line coach.
That's reported to not have happened, but still. They still get to play the burless Bengals. That is a win. The Eagles are the Eagles. The way Wentz has been looking, or Carson Wentz, that should be a win for the Cowboys. Now, they could always fuck it up. You never know, because they are the Cowboys. And then the New York Giants, my favorite team. The New York Giants just suffered an injury to Daniel Jones. I don't think with Colt McCoy.
There is no negligible difference.
Oh. You got a fucking jokester here. With Colt McCoy on the field, they're not going to be winning against any of the good teams. There's 0 chance. With a healthy Daniel Jones on the field, there's maybe 5% chance they're able to beat some of the teams they're playing up. But without him on the field, it's going to look rough. Without him on the field against the Cowboys, I would lean more towards the Cowboys. I think it's going to come down to that game, Week 17, Giants, Cowboys. If Daniel Jones is healthy and he's able to use his legs and take advantage of that as they have been in the recent weeks, I'd lean Giants. But if he's not healthy, if he's not able to take advantage of his legs, and he just has to sit in the pocket, or it's Colt McCoy, I think that's a game the Cowboys take, and we somehow find the Cowboys sitting in the playoffs.
Tristan, Daniel Jones has never beaten the Cowboys as a starting quarterback, and this year has more turnovers than he does touchdown passes. Touchdowns in general, actually, excuse me. There is very little difference. The only difference I see is they're probably going to throw it less with Colt McCoy as opposed to Daniel Jones. But if you're playing the Cowboys, you might try airing it out with the Texas football legend himself. That would be an interesting game. But the Giants I don't see another win on their schedule. I really don't. If they somehow get to 5 wins, they very well could win the division. But that just doesn't seem like something which is going to happen.
I mean, I'm not saying the Giants are good by any stretch of the imagination. If you think they can't beat the Cowboys, I think you're crazy, and most people would say, who the fuck's going to win that game? It doesn't really even matter because they're going to get smacked in the first round of the playoffs.
So that game feels like a tie, which would be amusing, but that game has meaningful.
If it came down to a tie,
potential.
then my playoff, because the Giants would get in the playoffs on a tiebreak at 5 wins, because the Cowboys would be coming into that game at 5 wins.
No, they wouldn't. The Cowboys would, or the Giants would have 4 wins and a tie. The football team presumably would have 5 wins.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
I am right, and that's okay.
Yeah, you are right. Because they would have the tiebreaker with.
But I will say this, and I think Tristan can agree with me on it. If one of these teams does make the playoffs, we truly don't know. We don't think it's going to be the Eagles, but by saying all the stuff, we may have just set up the Carson Wentz comeback train. If one of these teams makes the playoffs and has a shot at winning a game, I truly do believe it could be the football team. And you're going to laugh at me for that. And I'm not saying it's a good shot, but it's a better shot than everyone else because they do have that front 7, which is good. And Washington is notorious for rain and snow and slush, particularly in December and January.
I just think their offense is so incompetent that it would be hard for them to win a game against a good team.
Hey, weather turns both offenses incompetent. If they face the Buccaneers in the first round, the Buccaneers are running 4 verts every play, and Tom Brady's getting pressured while in the rain. That could be a closer football game than many of us expect. But that has been our thoughts on the NFC Least. Let us know down in the comment section below who you think is winning the division. If this division should even have a playoff spot, I personally don't. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.